All right, probably the most revealing line from the following column or the key line that sets the tone for what we're going to talk about. Every battle is won before it is fought. Noted in the act of war, the Chinese military work of literature. And joining us now is a man who has written quite an extensive column, very, very revealing, and I think that this needs to be discussed. And we welcome in Charles Stile, columnist for the Bergen Record here in Bergen County, New Jersey. I shouldn't say here. It's where I live. I'm here in Manhattan, but nonetheless, Charles, thank you for being with us, sir.
Good afternoon.
It's my pleasure to have you on. All right, so I really found this astounding because, I mean, I had no idea of what goes on behind the scenes and what Christie's been doing. I know I've criticized him more often than not ever since I strongly supported him, and he was in the primary against Steve Lonegan and one other Republican candidate, and then, of course, big time over Corzine. But you talk about how the day after he beat John Corzine, he started laying the groundwork for building up widespread Democratic support.
Yes, I think Christie is the ultimate pragmatist. I think he recognized that if he was going to get anything achieved in a predominantly Democratic state, he had to work with Democrats. He had to find a path to and levers of power to make that happen. I mean, he really had, frankly, no practical option other than to find some way to do it, to be honest with you. This is a Democratic state. The legislature is predominantly Democratic. And this is a state that not only supported Barack Obama, but enthusiastically did it. A lot of people don't realize New Jersey not only carried Obama in 2008, but it was the only state in 2012 that carried him again and did it by the widest margin in the country. So this is true blue territory, at least for the moment, although New Jersey does have a pretty strong and somewhat overlooked Republican tradition as well.
No, but yet, nonetheless, nonetheless, he did beat John Corzine in 2009 before he undertook this wooing of the Democrats.
That's correct, but and you're right about that. But that did not change the Democratic infrastructure that they had, their grip on power in Trenton, where really everything gets transacted, and he knew that. He knew that going in, even though parts of the Democratic machine had been dismantled when he was U.S. attorney through the use of the subpoena and the indictment. But still, a lot of it was intact, particularly in South Jersey, particularly in Essex County. He had to, and he knew he had to maneuver.
All right, and he started, I guess, with the mayor of Woodbridge, a Democratic mayor, John McCormick. He invited him to join his transition team, and then 3 years later, there was approval of a 700 megawatt power plant for Woodbridge. And this is not atypical. I mean, he did this with other Democratic mayors in other places, the mayor of Camden, and as you put it, Democratic mayor by Democratic mayor. That's one of the ways that he went about this.
Yes, he used pretty much every lever at his disposal to secure support. I think a lot of it was, whether it was using his influence with the Port Authority to make things happen for coveted projects in districts, or his administration approving what is called transitional aid for distressed cities. And sending it to towns that ultimately did endorse him. Put that in proper context, though, Christie did shrink that pot of money more so than any of the predecessors in that job. But he did, some of those towns did find themselves the beneficiary of that money. So, and then, or putting the muscle of his administration behind, as you mentioned, the 700 megawatt project in Woodbridge. He had, his administration made that a priority in helping Woodbridge with approvals and dealing with the DEP and the Board of Public Utilities and the Economic Development Agency.
And he did it with an African-American mayor in Camden County, got them a $200,000 state aid package for, as you said, economically distressed towns. He did it in another area, $250 million path transit hub, as you alluded to. That was Mayor Ray McDonough, another Democratic mayor. So that became a pattern, obviously, and it worked. But let me ask you about something else you mentioned here, and we're talking with Charles Stile, columnist for the Bergen Record here on the Steve Malzberg Show. You talk about DeCoitis, Fitzpatrick, and Cole of Teaneck, a law firm that donated to Christie big time $63,000, where they did not give
$6,300.
I'm sorry, $6,300. My fault. Where they did not give anything to Barbara Buono, his Democratic opponent, and yet this is a longtime member of the DNC and a fundraiser for Bill and Hillary Clinton. Why is it to their benefit to give to Christie, especially when it could propel him to face Hillary in an election? Why? I mean, it's better to have, I guess, two horses in the race, so someone has to win. Is that how they're looking at it?
Well, you raised some good points. I think, one is, first of all, DeCoitis is not just solely a Democratic firm. They have a lot of Republican lawyers. It's a political law firm, so they have enough in their stable from both parties to keep the doors open to both parties. So that's number one. But it was striking to see the DeCoitis family members who have been instrumental on a state and national level to give money to Christie. And I think there's a couple reasons for this. One is they are not alone. There are almost virtually every political law firm in the state either stayed away from Buono or gave a token amount to Christie. And $6,300 from a firm that size really is a token amount. Mm-hmm. It's not a lot. But it was the fact that they didn't give anything to the Democratic candidate that was so striking. And I think a couple of reasons, again, is that I think they want to be, like everybody else, they want to be on the side of a winner. It's kind of like placing your bets. It's like going to the window at OTB sometime in the spring, and you size up who's going to win, and you want to back the winner. And backing the winner obviously has benefits in terms of access or the potential of access. But there was also, and I alluded to this in the column, there was this feeling that it was really an unwise decision to be seen giving to Barbara Buono because the fear was if your name or your client's names were on those lists, you could be shut out. Mm. And so a lot of people said, well, why should I put myself in harm's way? Besides, she's going to lose anyway.
Good point. Okay, now let me ask you maybe the biggest thing that gained the most voter support, not internal, not mayoral support and key player support, but the public support was his perceived handling of the Sandy storm. I mean, he did all the right things. He said all the right things. He got the Democratic president there. He toured with him. He praised him. He hugged him, much to the chagrin of Mitt Romney and Republicans and conservatives at the time. But to this day, I don't think he's taken Obama to task or FEMA to task for all the people in New Jersey who are still without the funds they need, without the rebuilding they've needed, and are still in dire straits. But that aside, the way he handled Sandy, I guess, or at least, again, perceived to have handled Sandy, and Obama, the relationship with Obama, I guess that lingered in the minds of Democratic voters this time around, correct?
I agree. And I don't think it was just, your traditional, and I think it helps explain why his vote was so strong in untraditional or areas where Republicans don't do traditionally well, such as Hispanics and blacks. I think he just fed the narrative of leadership. This was not an election on his record, frankly. It was an election on his style of leadership, creating this sense that there's an adult in the room in the State House for the first time in a long time. Somebody's in control, and may not be getting there, may not be winning all the victories, and may not have had all the successes that everybody likes, but he's moving things in the right direction. That's what appealed to a lot of people. And Sandy kind of crystallized that in the minds of everybody. It was across party and across racial and ethnic lines. And he talks, since the election, he talks about how he cultivated a lot of those communities. To a certain extent, that's true, but really this was two things. One, it was selling the aggressive marketing and salesmanship of that image. And number two, by burying his opponent, or making sure that most of the state had no clue who his opponent was.
Yeah.
And that was locking down the fundraising and locking up or co-opting some parts of the Democratic machinery.
Well, I was just going to say the Christie machine definitely looks like it's ready to take the next step. One more for you is a couple of things that also I think didn't hurt that he paved the way for Cory Booker to become senator. I don't know how much that played into it at all. Probably didn't need to do that, but he did it anyway. And of course was seen at a ribbon cutting ceremony very close to the election, well after he had endorsed Lonigan, where they praised the heck out of each other, reminiscent of taking Obama by the hand before the presidential election.
I wrote about that too. Yeah. You're right.
And one other thing that always sticks in my craw as a New Jersey resident, who thank God, all we had was a blackout. We didn't have any damage. But going on Saturday Night Live about 3 weeks after the storm, if you remember, he was wearing that sweat jacket or whatever, and saying and quoting from Springsteen, "Everything dies, baby. That's a fact, but everything that dies one day comes back." When there were people who died. I found that very distasteful. I know nobody ever picked up on that, but I just don't get what he was thinking.
Well, I don't know. That's your observation.
Yeah.
But when I heard it, I thought he was saying that he was putting more emphasis on the state resurrecting itself.
Yeah, I guess, but he could have come up with another Springsteen song or something, but I don't know. If somebody I knew got killed in the storm, I don't think I would have been smiling. But anyway, hey, listen, very great insightful piece, and I thank you very much for joining us, Charles, and I hope you'll come back.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Take care now.
Thank you. Charles Stile, ladies and gentlemen. Read him at the Bergen Record, bergenrecord.com, and j.com. It's all over there. Very interesting behind-the-scenes kind of look at how the Christie machine, which is what he's going to need if he's going to go on in 2016 and run and get the nomination. They've shown that they are savvy enough to know what the heck they're doing in crossing party lines and cozying up to the people they need to cozy up to as far as private sector, mayors, Democratic mayors, you name it. So he did it, but Sandy was a big factor. When we come back, we have Matt Lewis of the Daily Caller, who has a warning, he says, for Chris Christie, and you're going to hear that when we come back right here. Steve Malzberg Show, 877 Newsmax, Newsmax TV and radio.